it's fine. Since my Lord, representing the Bishops' Conference, stood and gave the message, I feel obliged also to stand and address this august assembly, and I hope you don't mind. So, Your Excellencies, honorable members of Parliament, distinguished invited guests, and all of you, my brothers and sisters, I greet all of you very warmly in the name of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace of the Holy See at the Vatican. And on its behalf, we extend a very warm and cordial greetings to the Social Academy, the Social Institute, for having organized this past two-day event. As has been made known to you, the occasion for our gathering here was to present the small booklet out there which you have in your bag, The Vocation of the Business Leader. And we're taking occasion, availing ourselves of this opportunity to make this wider address to you about the values, about the place of values for business and in our society. So I wish to thank the Institute for this invitation, the Venite Institute, which is supposed to reflect the calling of St. Matthew from his tax post to come and to follow Jesus. So the Venite or the Venite Institute then is the group that I thank warmly for this evening's occasion that has brought all of us here together. And so, my dear friends, as you all may know, the Church's relationship with the world changed drastically at the Second Vatican Council. At the Second Vatican Council, the Church felt the need to establish relationship and ties with several sectors of our society. And so, as I have had a chance to recall already several times today, at the beginning of the Second Vatican Council, Pope John the 23rd said he wanted the windows of the Church to be thrown open so that the world outside can see into the Church and so that the Church can see the world outside. This gesture of the Pope signaled a change of relationship, which is then encouraged the Church to always follow very closely the activities of humanity, including the world of business, including entrepreneurs, including politicians, and every sector and every aspect of society. And therefore, a short while ago, at the beginning of this year, the World Economic Forum at Davos invited Pope Francis to come to address it. Pope Francis couldn't go, but he sent a message. And I had the honor of taking the message to Davos and reading it before the Davos Assembly. And in that message, Pope Francis, among other things, said that business is a vocation, indeed a very noble vocation, provided those who are engaged in business see themselves challenged by a greater meaning in life, and that is, if they do so, this will enable them truly to serve the common good by striving to increase the goods of this world and to make them more accessible and available to all. And when the Pope, right after Francis had said this, he went on to acknowledge the great value of business people in the world and recognize that they dispose of a lot of competence and expertise. After recognizing the competence and expertise of business people, then the Pope went on to say, now I challenge you to put this expertise and competence at the service of the least privileged and the rest of humanity. So, my dear friends, to live business as a vocation is what leads, we discover, to entrepreneurial success, personal happiness, and social justice. And so, by way of a small background to our discussion this evening about the place of values in business and in society, I would simply like to proceed this way. I would simply like to introduce what our council stands for, because it is one of our tasks to talk about this. And then go on to bring the key principles of the church's social teaching to the world of business. Then we can relate business to society here in Slovakia and the rest of the world at the global level, and then conclude with a joyful service which business can offer to humanity. So we'll begin first, and that is about why I'm here. My dear friends, as I've just said, one of the offices which were set up after Second Vatican Council was the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace. And as Pope Paul VI said, the mandate of this office is its name, justice and peace in the world. And it was this mandate then became a mandate that was supposed to help this office promote the church's social teaching and take care of its diffusion, that it's known all around the world. So that's what we try to do in Rome. With our small dicastery of about 22 people, we take up the charge of developing the church's social teaching and promoting its knowledge and its spread throughout the world. And one of the techniques that we have developed to promote the church's social teaching is to identify segments within society and address the message to them. For example, business people. And so we developed the vocation of the business people, to address the church's social teaching to the world of business. Under production is another document like this, but aimed at politicians. The vocation of the political leader and the politician. And after that, we intend to also identify another group, the engineers. And then also say the vocation of the engineer. And so, identifying segments within society like this, we hope to address the social teaching of the church to all the different components of society. We could, of course, stand in the church one Sunday and preach about it. But we're not sure that several people will keep it. But at least when we identify a segment of society and address the message to them, we hope something will stick. So that's what we're doing. So the scope of the council's activities include human rights, development, integral human development, the environment, as a result of which, as you may have heard, the next encyclical that Pope Francis wants to develop is about the ecology, natural and human ecology. Then also, there is a talk, therefore, about how we contribute to justice and peace in the world. Another important task is for this council to deepen the social doctrine of the church and make it applicable or applicable to the various situations in life. So over the past few years, the council has been very active on the subject of ethics in finance and in the area of business. In 2010, when I came to this office in Rome, it was shortly after the financial crisis. And so our office got together and produced a small booklet called Reforming the Financial System in the Light of a Global Authority. This document subsequently was discussed in the Bundesbank in Frankfurt by a lot of business leaders to see how we can take up the task of reforming the financial system so that we don't land in crisis again. So that is one stream of activities. And it is the global stream which call for the reform of the international financial monetary system and the new World Economic Forum in Davos, at which the Pope sent a message, and then a 2-day seminar that we ourselves organized last July about making about an inclusive economy, an economy that is inclusive and that doesn't leave anybody outside. Another stream of activities that we undertake in our office is a rather practical level, and this is the publication of this booklet, Vocation of the Business Leader, and other publications to follow. And a third stream of activity of our office is to bring the church's social teaching to particular industries, such as mining. Last September, we met the 25 CEO of big gold mining companies in the world because they wanted to change the image of the mining industry. In fact, the suggestion is that they don't want to call it any more extractive industry because it reminds people of going to the dentist, okay, to have their tooth extracted. So they rather want to call it natural resource development industry. A beautiful, nice expression, but it's still the same mining. And then we also follow the issue of agriculture, farming, and the production of food. We follow the issue of work, and we follow the important issue also of that cuts across the world. And if we change the program here, and I have to leave for Rome very early tomorrow, it's because we're organizing another big conference with the Pope and the religious leaders about human trafficking. All the crucial big issues in the world are things that we try to handle and deal with. So tomorrow at 11 o'clock in Rome, the Pope, the chief sheikh from Al-Azhar University in Cairo, the head of the Buddhists and all will gather together to make a statement against human trafficking in the world. So that is, again, part of what we have to deal with. So these are some of the activities that we work with, and that is what has also brought us to this. Now, what is this thing that we try to say and spread? The church's social teaching. This, in fact, is something that is rooted in the Bible. It is not the Vatican or the Holy See that made up the church's social teaching. It's something that comes from our faith, that comes from scriptures itself, that is rooted in the Bible. And what has been done is that the data and the resources of scripture and revelation, within the challenges of the natural and the human sciences, have been developed into this system of teaching to help. And it's basically faith that does justice, or faith that does work. For example, Jesus looks for more than faith alone in people. Although on several occasions the gospel reports Jesus telling individuals that their faith has saved or healed them, Jesus seeks more than faith by itself. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only those who do the will of my Father. So Jesus looks for faith, but not only faith. He looks also for what faith does and what faith makes people to do. What is the more is that Jesus states it clearly in his letter. James states it clearly in his letter. What good is it, my brothers, if you say you have faith, but do not have works? Can faith save you? If a brother or sister is naked and lacks daily food, and one of you were to say to him, go and keep warm, without taking care of her needs, what value of what use is that faith? So it is that faith without works is dead. Catholic social teaching expresses a wisdom tradition that places us in touch with a living reality of Christ's presence in the world. These social teachings help us to understand the social dimensions of our faith. Faith cannot be a private reality, a set of private convictions, and a set of private principles. Faith is incomplete without a vision of the world and our place within the world. It is, therefore, for the sake of important needs in the world that the Catholic Church has always been a builder of hospices, clinics and hospitals, monasteries, and so on, schools and universities, and it is always to put to practice its faith. So Jesus often criticized the contradictory gap between what we profess and what actually happens or is done. This gap must run very deep because nearly 2,000 years later, the Second Vatican Council identified a divided life as one of the most serious errors of our age. The lack of a connection between the faith we profess and the life we live. This disconnect or gap is what the Second Vatican Council, through the Church's social teaching, wants us to gradually bring together. So the vocation document over here, it seeks basically to invite business people to bring their faith to business. And it is basically an attempt to help us all bring our faith and what we do together. There cannot be a disconnect between what we believe and what we do. What we believe should inspire what we do. So our faith and our life or activities must come together. So the Catholic social teaching then comprises perennial doctrine that grew over the gap, and especially since Pope Leo XIII. In Rerum Novarum in 1891, in the wake of the Industrial Revolution here in Europe, Pope Leo XIII came out with the first teaching about the application of faith to the world of industry, the world of labor. And since then, this teaching has developed up to this time. It developed in a big way with Pope Paul VI, who came out with the encyclical Populorum Progressio. It developed further with Pope John Paul II with the encyclical Solicitude Rei Socialis, and then again with Centesimus Annus. Then with Pope Benedict, Caritas in Veritate also took up the issue of the social teaching. And Pope Francis, with his exhortation Evangelii Gaudium, also devotes the 4th chapter also to the question of faith and life, or faith and activities that we do. So this helps us to describe certain basic principles. And it is the basic principle of human dignity as the most basic of all principles. This is my problem. I make a lot of comments as I talk, and I hope I'll keep the time. Yeah? What I want to say is that human dignity is one of the big influences that Christianity had when it came to Europe. When Christianity arrived in Rome, in Italy, the word dignity existed, but it was used for military commanders and leaders who come victorious from battle. Then because of their victory and because of their valor, they were called to be people of dignitas. Christianity took this dignitas and turned it over on its head, so that it did not refer to people who have military power and military success, but to human beings created in the image and likeness of God. So dignity, in the hands of Christian thinkers, did not refer to military commanders who have gained victory over in a battle or anything, but dignitas now refer to the fact that every human being is created in the image and the likeness of God. That is his dignitas. So human dignity then becomes the most common and the basic thing that all of us have by reason of our creation. So human dignity is the basic thing. And human dignity expresses itself in the so very many different human rights. All the human rights, including those described by the United Nations, they all affirm dignity without touching it, but they're all based on human dignity. And so the basic human rights of people are all expressions of the dignity of the human person. The right to house, the right to food, the right to water, the right to religion, the right to conscience. All of those are expressions of the dignity of the human person. And when we promote the dignity of the human person, then we're moving for the common good. The common good then becomes our way of pursuing the well-being of everybody. And this becomes then the second principle that we also talk about. And after talking about common good, since we live in society, supporting one another to realize their common good becomes our expression of solidarity. And when we encourage people to be responsible also for the common good, then there is subsidiarity. So these then become the basic principles underlying the church's social teaching. And with subsidiarity and solidarity, especially talking about the world of business, then the big thing that is left out there is the sense of stewardship. For people to feel that God has entrusted and put something in their hands, which they themselves must also exercise and use for the well-being of other people. So we talk about human dignity, the common good, solidarity, subsidiarity, and we can also add the universal destination of the goods of the earth and all, but now the principle of stewardship then comes next. So now that we have kind of gotten these basic principles underlying the church's social teaching, how do we go about applying them to the world of business as a source of value creation? Our question now is not about business in general and society in general. Pope Francis explains, but real decisions by the real leaders in economic and politics. We can no longer trust in the unseen forces and the invisible hand of the market. Growth in justice requires more than economic growth. While presupposing such growth, it requires decisions, programs, mechanisms, and processes specifically geared to a better distribution of the income, the goods of the earth, the creation of sources of employment, of integral promotion of the poor and the human person, and the welfare which goes beyond the simple welfare mentality. And so business leaders then need to develop good habits of discernment, a process of discovering the good in concrete here and now in everything that they do by employing the great principles of human dignity, the common good, as our beacons to shed light on the realities of the activities of every day. These principles become lenses which help business people to see the good in all what they do. And seeing the good in what they do and pursuing it becomes the value that they create. Last Saturday, we were in Budapest. We had met with another group of business people, Unia Park, like here. And there they decided to treat a topic or a theme which called for the making of values in business. And basically, it was the application of all of these basic principles. So I want now to touch briefly on three objectives that connect discernment with outcomes. The first objective is to produce good goods. Okay, business produces goods, but we're talking not simply about goods, but goods which are good. So good goods. Business must attend to people's needs by producing goods that are truly good and goods that truly serve. Businesses have an ability or opportunity to provide what everyone needs in the way of food, shelter, and so on. But are they truly good? The answer does not reduce to price or to legalities. Rather, it should be asked, how do these products and services contribute directly or indirectly to the human well-being, the well-being of humanity? Customers are not just objects or consumers, but persons. Further, businesses must be alert for opportunities to serve deprived populations and people in significant need. Therefore, solidarity with the poor is also one of the values for which services are rendered also in business for the common good. The second observation is about work. So not simply good goods, but good work. Business uses labor. Business uses work. And it is important, for example, pursuing the role of value in business, that true value in business makes also the work that people perform or do good work. By organizing good and productive work, businesses make a contribution to the community by fostering the special dignity of the human work. It was Pope John Paul II who told us that work does not refer to what we produce, but work also refers to what we do to our person. So when anybody works, he doesn't only produce something, but he also exercises his own creativity and makes himself psychologically improved and uplifting. So there is also a psychological and personal dimension to work, which invites us to consider work beyond simply producing something, to consider the effect of work on our personality and our own selves. Then thirdly, we can talk about good wealth. So good goods, good work, and then good wealth. Wealth, money, good wealth. By being good stewards of the resources given to them, businesses create sustainable wealth through efficient and productive processes producing healthy profits. But generating wealth in a business is insufficient without a wider context of stewardship for the natural and cultural environment and just redistribution to all stakeholders who have made the wealth possible, namely the employers, the customers, the investors, the suppliers of raw material, and the larger community. These three objectives, my dear friends, show that businesses are multidimensional. They are multidimensional realities, making for good goods, using good work, and aiming at good wealth. They are not to be reduced to a single objective, such as maximizing profit or enhancing shareholder wealth. Just as marriage should not be reduced to sentiments between partners and lovers, or education to credentials for a career, rather a flourishing business enterprise contributes to the larger common good by fulfilling its threefold purposes of good goods, good work, and good wealth. So this is the framework, and these are the beacons, the lenses that the Vocation Handbook encourages business leaders to use when they see, judge, and act. So to see is to discover the needs in the environment and the challenges that they face. To judge is to distinguish between courses of action and to decide what is right instead of ethically inadequate and sometimes even perverse attitudes. So on the global scene, the global financial crisis, which broke in 2008, is still with us and has not ceased to cause a lot of collateral damage. The indifference of business elites has been colossal, and a brief shrug demand for public assistance to prevent further disaster than resumption of the former behavior with even higher salaries and bonuses still enhance the crisis. A newspaper article which emerged at the beginning of August says, coming from the big bank says, save us before we do it again. Meaning that it's the banks crying, save us before we cause another crisis. So the factors which led to the financial crisis are not completely under control. And this, again, is what will lead to the call for basic human values also on the global scene. The American economist Jeffrey Sachs appreciates the critique which Pope Francis makes of economic pursuits reduced to a narrow libertarian ideology. Pope Francis says, far too many of rich and powerful are enthralled to an economic ideology that places property rights over human dignity, even human survival. Too many believe that mortality is the result of the marketplace. Too many believe that morality is the result of the marketplace. Liberty in this vision is the freedom to buy, to sell, and to protect one's property. Neither government, nor regulation, nor even moral self-restraint should interfere. Taxes, for example, are viewed as a form of servitude to the state, even when the tax revenues are destined to feed the poor, to sustain the unemployed, and to provide health to the indigent and to protect the environment for all. So Jeffrey Sachs agrees with the Pope Francis' agenda of re-establishing a moral foundation for our local, national, and global economy, and he concludes, we face a moral crisis, much more than a financial and economic crisis. The crisis facing the world is not simply financial, it's not simply economic, it's a moral anthropological crisis. At this stage of history, humanity is at a crossroad. With a future course of our own choosing, we have the technical means to solve our national and global problems, to banish poverty, to fight disease, and to protect our environment, and to train the illiterate and unskilled. But we can, and we will do it. So if we care enough to mount the effort, we can, and we can do it. Now, for Jeffrey Sachs, when it is possible to do something, but we don't have the willpower to do it, then it's unethical, it's immoral to be in such a situation. And so, my dear friends, by way of concluding, I think I've bored you enough. I should give you a break now. And so, again, we renew our commendations to this institute for having brought us here tonight to consider these concerns about value in business and value in our society. It's a crucial thing upon which the well-being of all of us, the common good, rests upon. And it's something that all of us can pursue. When people pray every day, give us this day our daily bread, I hope that business leaders will understand that their vocation includes the need to satisfy hunger and to overcome poverty. And can they go further? How can they help to overcome exclusion, inequality, and so on? The Vocation Handbook signals a way to go. In the Gospel, Jesus tells us, from everyone whom much has been given, much is also demanded. So now, we want to pray for this institute and all of us gathered here, that moved by the teaching and the example of Christ, we want to enter fully into the fabric of society, sharing the lives of all, listening to their concerns, helping them materially and spiritually in their needs, rejoicing with them, with those who rejoice, weeping with those who weep, arm in arm with others, and we are committed to building a new world, full of values and full of concern for the common good. But we do so not from a sense of obligation, not as a burden, but as a result of personal decision, which brings us joy and which brings meaning to our lives and the lives of all who depend on our own value adoption lives. So I want to thank you this evening for your kind attention and pray that all of us be inspired in everything we do by the values of the gospel. Thank you.